Imagine this. It's 6:30 a.m. on a Tuesday. The alarm on your phone goes off, emitting that specific soul-crushing ringtone you've grown to absolute detest. Your eyes are heavy, your blanket is warm, and for a split second, you contemplate just not going. But then the reality of your bank account hits you. You think about the rent, the car payment, that credit card bill from last month's vacation that was supposed to make you feel alive but just made you feel guilty. So, you drag yourself out of bed, step into the shower, grab a lukewarm coffee, and join the millions of other exhausted people sitting in bumper-to-bumper traffic, staring at the taillights in front of them. You're trading 5 days of your week, your youth, your energy, your literal life, just to buy back 2 days of freedom on the weekend. And honestly, it feels like a rigged game, doesn't it? Like you're running on a financial hamster wheel that's spinning faster and faster, but you're staying in the exact same spot. My name is Bob, and I spend way too much time thinking about money, human psychology, and why some people seem to effortlessly break out of this trap and achieve total financial independence, while everyone else stays stuck in the exact same stressful patterns for decades. I've obsessed over the math, the strategies, and the mindset shifts because, frankly, I used to be the guy staring at the taillights, wondering if this was all life was supposed to be. But here is the thing that nobody really tells you. The absolute fastest way to escape this loop and achieve true financial freedom isn't what the mainstream financial media sells you. It's not about clipping coupons for 40 years. And it's definitely not about getting lucky on some volatile meme stock or crypto trend. It's about a fundamental, almost radical shift in how you view a dollar bill, how you structure your daily routines, and how you aggressively optimize the space between what you earn and what you spend. Today, we are going to tear down the traditional slow-motion retirement model and walk through the actual, hyper-accelerated blueprint to buy back your freedom. Because at the end of the day, money isn't just paper, it's stored time. And I want to show you how to get your time back fast. We have to start with the biggest psychological barrier holding people back. And honestly, it's something we've all been guilty of at some point. It's this weird, unspoken cultural rule that your personal worth is tied to your outward displays of consumption. Think about it. When you see someone driving a brand new $80,000 luxury SUV through your neighborhood, what is your immediate, gut-level reaction? You think, wow, that person is incredibly wealthy. But if we actually strip away the emotion and look at the raw financial reality, that car tells us absolutely nothing about their wealth. It only tells us about their spending. For all you know, that person is suffocating under a $1,200 a month lease, drowning in credit card debt, and possesses a net worth that is deep in the negative. They aren't actually rich. They are just deeply, profoundly leveraged. Basically, we live in a society that confuses spending money with having money. True wealth, the kind that lets you sleep like a baby at night, the kind that gives you total independence, is everything you don't see. It's the money in the brokerage accounts, the paid-off real estate, the liquid cash reserves. It's the invisible freedom to say no to a toxic boss or a soul-sucking job. I remember a few years ago, I had a friend who made mid-six figures at a corporate law firm. On paper, he was killing it. He bought the penthouse apartment, wore the tailored suits, dined at five-star restaurants every weekend. But he confessed to me over a drink one night that he was living paycheck to paycheck. If he missed a single month of work, his entire life would collapse like a house of cards. He was a modern-day indentured servant to his own lifestyle. Why does this matter to you? Because the moment you stop trying to look rich is the exact moment you actually give yourself a mathematical chance at becoming rich. The fastest way to accelerate your journey to financial independence is to ruthlessly eliminate the need for external validation. When you buy things you don't need, with money you don't have, to impress people you don't even like, you are literally trading your future freedom for a temporary hit of dopamine. So, here is the actionable takeaway. Next time you are about to make a major purchase, whether it's a new car, a wardrobe upgrade, or the latest tech gadget, ask yourself this brutal question: am I buying this because it genuinely improves my daily life, or am I buying it to signal a status that I haven't actually earned yet? If it's the latter, put the wallet away. Every dollar you don't waste on temporary status signals is a dollar that can be deployed into the market to buy back your permanent freedom. Alright, let's talk about the actual engine of fast financial independence. If you pick up a traditional personal finance book, they will tell you to save 10% or maybe 15% of your income. They say if you do that consistently for 45 years, by the time you're 65, you'll have enough money to retire, buy a golf club membership, and finally, enjoy life. But let's be real for a second, that sounds incredibly depressing. Who wants to spend their best, healthiest, most vibrant years grinding away at a desk just so they can enjoy financial freedom when their knees hurt and they have to go to bed by 9 p.m.? No offense to the 65-year-olds out there, but the math of traditional retirement is slow because it's designed for the masses. If you want to achieve total financial independence fast, like in 10 years or less, you have to completely throw that traditional math out the window. Your timeline to freedom is determined by one metric, and one metric only: your savings rate. This is the percentage of your take-home pay that you actually keep and invest. Let's look at the math, because the math doesn't care about your feelings. If you save 10% of your income, it takes you roughly 9 years of work to save enough to fund just 1 year of living expenses. But if you can flip the script and push your savings rate to 50%, a magical thing happens. For every single year you work, you are buying back exactly 1 year of future freedom. If you can push it to 70%, you buy back more than 2 years of freedom for every 1 year of work. Now, I know what you're thinking. Bob, you're crazy. How am I supposed to save 50% or 70% of my income when rent is sky high and groceries cost a fortune? And look, I get it. If you're making $40,000 a year, a 50% savings rate is practically impossible without living in a cardboard box and eating nothing but instant ramen. Which leads me to a quick aside. Early on in my journey, I tried the extreme frugality route. I was turning off the lights when I left the room for 2 minutes, buying the generic cardboard-tasting cereal, and stressing over a $4 latte. And honestly, it made me absolutely miserable. It took up so much mental bandwidth that I didn't have any energy left to actually think about how to grow my income. Frugality has a ceiling. You can only cut your expenses down to zero, but your income? Your income has no ceiling. The secret to a hyper-high savings rate without misery is what I call lifestyle cap. When your income inevitably grows through promotions, side hustles, or switching jobs, you do not allow your lifestyle to grow with it. If you get a $10,000 raise, your expenses should stay exactly where they were. That entire $10,000 goes straight into your investment bucket. If you can keep your expenses locked at a reasonable level while aggressively scaling your earning potential, your savings rate will naturally skyrocket to 50% or more, completely bypassing the 40-year grind. So, how do we actually widen that space between what we make and what we spend? I like to visualize personal finance as a physical engine. You have the intake, which is your income, and you have the exhaust, which is your expenses. The space between them is the gap. The wider that gap, the more power the engine has to propel you toward financial independence. Most people focus entirely on the exhaust. They obsess over cutting out streaming services or finding a cheaper phone plan. And look, that's fine to clean up the noise, but it's not going to move the needle in a massive way. You cannot minimize your way to millions. You have to maximize your way there. To build a high-speed gap engine, you have to become an aggressive producer, not just a passive consumer. In today's digital economy, there is absolutely no excuse for having only one source of income. Relying on a single W-2 job for your entire financial survival is like hanging off a cliff by a single piece of rope. It's incredibly risky, and it keeps you playing defense. You need to play offense. This means finding a way to monetize a skill, a passion, or your spare time outside of your regular working hours. Whether it's freelance writing, consulting, building a digital product, or even flipping items on eBay, you need a secondary income stream. But here is the golden rule of the gap engine. The secondary income must be pure fuel. You do not use your side hustle money to buy nicer dinners or upgrade your wardrobe. You treat that money as if it doesn't even exist. It bypasses your checking account entirely and goes directly into assets that generate passive cash flow. Remember when I first started earning money outside of my main job? It wasn't a lot, maybe $300 a month from some freelance consulting work. But instead of spending it, I set up an automatic transfer to buy shares of an index fund the day the money hit my account. Seeing that separate stream of income immediately turn into a wealth-generating asset changed something in my brain. It became a game. I wanted to see how large I could make that gap. Your actionable goal should be this. Aim to cover 100% of your basic living expenses, rent, utilities, food, with your primary job, and dedicate every single penny of your secondary income to investing. Once you establish that rhythm, your path to financial independence shifts into overdrive. Now, let's talk about the point where most people get discouraged and quit, because this is a massive psychological trap. When you first start investing, your hard-earned money, it feels incredibly slow. It feels like you're putting buckets of water into an empty swimming pool with a teaspoon. Let's say you manage to save $10,000. You put it in the stock market, and it earns a solid 8% return over the year. That's $800. Now don't get me wrong, $800 is great, but it's not life-changing. It's not going to allow you to quit your job. It barely covers a couple of months of groceries. And you look at the total amount of effort, sacrifice, and discipline it took to save that $10,000, and you think, why am I even bothering? At this rate, it'll take me 100 years to reach financial independence. This is where the legendary investor Charlie Munger had a piece of advice that everyone needs to tattoo on their brain. He basically said that the first $100,000 is a total nightmare, but you have to do whatever it takes to get there. If it means walking everywhere and eating nothing but cabbage, you find a way to get your hands on $100,000. Why did he say that? Because of how the mathematics of compounding interest work. In the beginning, 99% of the growth of your net worth is driven by your contributions. Your manual labor, your sweat, your savings. The money itself isn't doing much heavy lifting because the pile isn't big enough yet. But once you cross that $100,000 threshold, the physics of wealth completely change. An 8% return on $100,000 is $8,000 a year. Suddenly, your money is earning more in a year than you used to be able to save in 6 months. When you hit $300,000, that same 8% return is $24,000 a year, which is a full-time minimum wage salary being generated by your money while you sleep. At that point, your money is doing more work than you are. The absolute fastest way to financial independence is to understand that the first phase is going to feel like a grind, and that's completely normal. You aren't doing it wrong, you're just in the heavy lifting phase. Don't look at the daily fluctuations. Don't get discouraged by the small returns early on. Focus entirely on pushing that snowball up the hill until it reaches the peak at $100,000. Once it clears that peak, gravity takes over and the snowball starts rolling